The truth nobody wants to say out loud. There is a sentence that Savannah Guthrie wrote on Instagram just 2 days ago. A sentence that stopped people mid-scroll. A sentence that once you read it, you cannot unread it. She said, and I am reading this word for word, we want to celebrate her beautiful and courageous life. But we cannot do that until she is brought to her final place of rest. Her final place of rest. Not until she comes home. Not until she is found safe. Her final place of rest. That is a daughter who has accepted something the rest of the world is still catching up to. And today, on day 52 of this investigation, we are going to have the conversation that the mainstream media keeps dancing around. Because this case just took a turn. Several turns, actually. The glove that was supposed to crack everything open. A wrong person entirely. The camera footage that was supposed to reveal a second visit, another dead end. The investigation that was supposed to be solved in days is now entering its 8th week with no arrest, no named suspect, and a family using language that sounds less like hope and more like goodbye. Stay with me. Because everything you think you know about this case is about to get a whole lot more complicated. The language has changed. I want to start with the most important shift in this entire story because it is not coming from investigators or the FBI. It is coming from the Guthrie family themselves. And if you pay close attention to how their words have changed over the past 8 weeks, a very painful picture starts to form. In the early days, Savannah posted videos saying the family was ready to talk, that they just needed proof of life. She looked into the camera and said it was never too late to do the right thing. The language was urgent, desperate, but still full of hope. In one of her more recent videos, Savannah Guthrie acknowledged the possibility that her mother may already be gone. That was the first public crack in the hope. And then came this past Saturday, March 21st, just 3 days ago. The family released a new statement, and the language had shifted completely. They wrote, "We miss our mom with every breath, and we cannot be at peace until she is home. We cannot grieve. We can only ache and wonder. We cannot grieve. We can only ache and wonder." And then the line that stopped everyone. "We want to celebrate her beautiful and courageous life. Oh, but we cannot do that until she is brought to her final place of rest." That is not the language of a family waiting for their mother to walk through the door. That is the language of a family preparing for a funeral they have not been allowed to have yet. And then on Sunday, just 2 days ago, Savannah posted again on Instagram. She wrote, "Someone knows how to find our mum and bring her home." And she shared the FBI tip line. Savannah Guthrie is one of the sharpest communicators in American media. She chooses her words carefully. And right now, her words are telling us something that nobody in the mainstream press wants to say directly. One of the country's most respected detectives is willing to say it. And I am going to let him. Morgan Wright drops the bombshell. His name is Morgan Wright. He is a former detective and the CEO of the National Center for Open and Unsolved Cases. He has studied this case in extraordinary depth. He has flown to Tucson. He has physically walked the crime scene. He has examined the blood evidence on the porch with his own eyes. And what he is saying is the most important analysis anyone has offered on this case so far. Morgan breaks this entire case down into what he calls the binary question. Was this a burglary that went terribly wrong, or was this a targeted abduction that was planned from the very beginning? He says that question is the foundation of everything. Because if you are hunting a panicked burglar, that is one investigation. But if you are hunting someone who studied Nancy's home, learned her routines, and showed up that night with a mission that is a completely different and far more terrifying kind of criminal. And here is where Morgan lands after examining everything. He says, think about the 16-minute window. The camera went dark at 1:47 a.m. Motion was detected at 2:12 a.m. Nancy's pacemaker disconnected at 2:28 a.m. 16 minutes. Morgan's question is this in 16 minutes. Does a burglar who panicked suddenly arrange a kidnapping? Does he summon transportation? Does he coordinate with a second person? Does he execute an entire exit plan for a crime he never intended to commit? His answer is no. He says the evidence keeps pulling him in one direction. This was planned. This was targeted. And then he says something that made even the interviewer go quiet. He says we need to stop treating this like a missing person case. Because a missing person case and a potential homicide are two completely different investigations with completely different search tactics and completely different things investigators tell the public. He said, and I want you to really hear this, an 84-year-old woman with a cardiac condition, violently woken at 2 in the morning and physically removed from her home if she passed away shortly after being taken, the people responsible would have realized very quickly that disposing of her was less risky than keeping her. And then he says something about the reward money that is chilling in its logic. The Guthrie family and the FBI together have put over $1.2 million on the table, and not one person has come forward to claim it. Morgan says that tells him this involves no more than 1 or 2 people. Because if 3 or more people knew this secret, someone would have talked by now for that kind of money. Secrets, he says, only stay secrets in very small rooms. The investigation. What is actually happening? Now let us talk about what investigators have actually been doing, because despite the silence, this case is far from cold. Former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer posted on social media this past Sunday, pushing back hard on any suggestion that this case has stalled. She said a case is only cold if investigators have no leads, no interviews left to conduct, no video to evaluate, and no forensic evidence to examine. She wrote that Nancy's case is red hot behind the scenes and that the FBI is drinking from a fire hose with more investigative leads than most cases ever have. So what are those leads? First, the DNA. The investigators have turned to forensic genetic genealogy, the same technique used to catch Brian Koberger, the man who murdered 4 University of Idaho students in 2022 to analyze the DNA recovered from the crime scene. Experts warn that the process takes time. You may identify multiple people within the same DNA family, and each one has to be investigated independently. But this technique has cracked cases that looked impossible. It is one of the most powerful tools in modern criminal investigation. Second, the neighborhood sweep. Investigators have returned to Nancy's Catalina Foothills neighborhood specifically to examine a vacant property nearby that was emptied shortly before her disappearance, as well as several homes under construction in the area. Agents have reportedly requested the names of every contractor and worker active in that neighborhood in the days and weeks leading up to her abduction. Someone was watching that house, and investigators are methodically working backward to figure out who had access and opportunity. Third, the dates. Investigators have been visiting neighbors and asking specifically about camera footage from January 11th, 3 weeks before Nancy disappeared, as well as January 24th, exactly 1 week before she was taken. They are building a timeline of surveillance, of a person or persons who came to that neighborhood more than once before they made their move. The masked suspect seen on Nancy's doorbell camera the night she disappeared was also recorded at her doorstep on a separate earlier night, meaning he came back. He had been there before. This was not random. This was deliberate. The dead ends. Now, in the interest of giving you the full picture, let us talk about the dead ends, because there have been several, and they matter. The glove. Remember the black glove found 2 miles from Nancy's home in February? The one that appeared to match exactly what the suspect was wearing. Investigators lifted DNA from it, sent it to the FBI's national database, and waited. The results came back, and the DNA belonged to a local restaurant worker who is not part of this investigation. An innocent person. A complete dead end. The additional cameras. Investigators recovered footage from 2 additional cameras on Nancy's property. One focused on the back of the house and one covering the driveway and garage. The footage captured family members, landscapers and pool workers. Nothing was deemed suspicious, and the suspect from the doorbell footage did not appear in any of it. The one image the world has, that single clip from the front door, remains the only known image of this person. And then, there is the ransom question. A former FBI special agent told Yahoo News that ransom is appearing less and less likely as the motive. There's too much involved, he said. There are too many ways people can get caught. Ransom kidnappings are extraordinarily rare in the United States, and the disorganized, after-the-fact nature of the notes that appeared suggests something much more improvised and chaotic than a professional ransom operation. So, if it was not ransom, what was it? That is the question investigators say they believe they have an answer to. But they are not sharing it with the public yet. The sheriff knows why, but won't say. Here is one of the most infuriating and fascinating details in this entire investigation. The Pima County Sheriff, Chris Nanos, told NBC Nightly News that investigators believe they know why Nancy Guthrie's home was targeted. "We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted," he said. But he did not elaborate further. He then added, "And this should send a chill down your spine. Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. No. Keep your wits about you." Read that twice. The sheriff leading this investigation is telling the entire city of Tucson, do not assume you are safe. We believe we know the motive. We believe it was targeted. But we are not telling you why. Why would investigators hold that back? There are a few possibilities. One, they do not want to tip off the suspect that they are closing in on the motive. Two, the motive is connected to a lead they are still actively pursuing. Three, the motive, if made public, could compromise the investigation entirely. Whatever the reason, the sheriff knows something. And what he knows, he believes puts other people at potential risk. That detail alone should make this case feel very different to you than it did 5 minutes ago. The sheriff was also asked directly whether the suspect could strike again. His answer was chilling in its simplicity. "Well, absolutely," he said. "Criminal minds are criminal minds." Day 52, where we stand right now. As of today, Tuesday, March 24th, 2026, Nancy Guthrie has been missing for 52 days. The search officially hit the 50-day mark this past Sunday, an important and heartbreaking milestone, with no suspects named and no indication from officials that an arrest is imminent. The FBI is still working the case. The DNA analysis is ongoing. The neighborhood canvass continues. The tip line is still active, and the family's $1 million reward is still waiting for someone brave enough to claim it. The Guthrie family is also donating $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, an organization that has helped recover more than 450,000 missing children in honor of their mother. Even in the middle of their own devastation, they are thinking about other families. "We are deeply grateful for the outpouring from neighbors, friends, and the people of Tucson," the family said. We are all family now." And Savannah, who quietly visited the Today Show set recently for the first time since her mother disappeared, told her colleagues through tears, "I don't know how to come back, but I don't know how not to. You're my family, and I would like to try." That sentence, that is everything. Nancy Guthrie is somebody's mother, somebody's grandmother, a woman who spent over 5 decades building a life in Tucson, raising her children, going to church every Sunday, and loving her family with everything she had. She deserves answers. Her family deserves answers. And the person or persons responsible for what happened to her deserves to face justice. If you are in Tucson or southern Arizona, please look through your security footage. Check January 11th, check January 24th. So check the night of January 31st and the early hours of February 1st. If you saw anything at all, contact the FBI right now at 1-800-CALL-FBI. You can also go to tips.fbi.gov. The reward is still $1.2 million. If this video helped you understand this case, share it, post it, send it to someone. Because every single person who learns Nancy's name is one more pair of eyes in this story. Subscribe if you want to follow this case as it develops, because we are not going anywhere. And neither is this investigation. I will see you in the next one.